What is a bard? Now, you might think to yourself, well, a bard is someone who plays music at a bar, or is the drunken friend who has a surprisingly good singing voice. They're really good at instruments. Maybe they're the court jester. These are the things that commonly get thought of when you think of bard. But a bard in reality is just any type of entertainer. It could be Kevin Hart, who's a comedian. He's technically a bard. It can be Shakespeare that wrote plays. He's literally known as the bard, and he didn't do anything musical as far as I know. It could be an actual musician. Maybe it's Hatsune Miku, someone who can both sing and dance, and it is also a VTuber avatar, pretty much. A bard can be a lot of different things. Basically, any form of entertainment is technically a bardic art, which bards are all about art. Even artists, like literal people that draw, paint, those are bards. People that make video games, that's a fudging bard right there. Speaking of video games, let's get in today's video. We're talking about bard in Dark and Darker compared to bard in base PHB 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So we are going to take a look at the difference in each of them, and honestly, all that nuance I just gave you about bard, you can just throw it out the window, because neither D&D nor Dark and Darker actually care. They just see bards as musicians, they play songs, and they're kind of magical because of how good they are at playing songs. Let's jump right into Dark and Darker first and see what we got here. Alright, so let's first get started off with their base gear. Their base gear being a straw hat, some normal wanderer attire, you get some leather gloves, adventurer's boots, cloth pants, some pretty standard adventuring stuff, but you do also get a straw hat, which is pretty cool, and it kind of adds to the kind of whimsy of being a bard. In terms of weaponry, you can expect them to usually have a rapier, maybe a buckler along with them as well. And then obviously their instruments. There are 4 instruments that can be used in Dark and Darker, and each one actually has their own spell list. So since we already went over the weaponry, let's go into the spell list of Bard, and we're going to break it up by each type of instrument that they can use. First up, we have drums, which give you your more slow melodies that are usually basically almost like war cries. They boost your compatriots, and they also do damage in AoE methods. Kind of like the drummer you would hear if like a barbarian raid was coming in. You hear the boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that's, you know that something bad is coming your way if you're hearing that coming around. So what do we have here? We have Rousing Rhythms, which gives a +2 to every single attribute. We have Den of Darkness, which just does damage in a large area. Not a lot of damage, but still a decent bit of damage as an AoE. Then we have Beats of Alacrity, which increases your movement speed. You have Allegro, which increases the action speed and spell speed of those around you. And then we have Accelerando, which gives an additional movement speed to the people around you, specifically your allies. Then we have the Flute, which is more sneaky, more conniving sounding music. It is more so for harsh single-person attacks, but it is also used for things like breaking locks, which is the first one. Unchained Harmony, which allows you to unlock any locked door, chest, anything. It doesn't matter. You can use Unchained Harmony to break it. Then you get Shriek of Weakness, which actually decreases the physical power of any enemies that hear it. You have Piercing Shrill, which just does damage to a singular target. A pretty decent amount of damage too. It's not anything to scoff at. Then you have Banshee's Howl, which reduces all of the attributes of nearby enemies for 20 seconds. It's actually pretty freaking good, I'm not gonna lie. Next up we have is the Lute. This one is more of a kind of utility utility songs. I don't really use the loop very often. They're very specific kind of in their use cases. So first we have Song of Silence, which is actually something that could be used pretty often if you're playing PvP, especially if you're going against a lot of wizards, because it is going to completely stop them from being able to cast spells because of the fact that they can no longer speak. Then you have Peacemaking, which will then make it so that all nearby players and monsters, including yourself and your party, cannot attack at all for a certain amount of time. For as long as you are playing the music, you cannot be attacked, and also you cannot attack others. Next is Lament of Longur, which reduces the movement speed of all enemy targets by 10. Pretty good. You have Chaotic Discord, which excites nearby monsters to attack you. It literally just makes it so that enemies attack you more. Not attack you more, sorry. Attack everybody but you more. And then you have Area of Clarity, which gives you a bonus to your action speed. This one is just kind of very specific on how the loot is played. I couldn't even give you a description on how the music sounds, mostly because I do not use it at all. Next up is the Liar. This is all about more so helping out your teammates, giving them protection, healing them, stuff like that. The music is very godly, very harp-esque. It's very nice. We have Tranquility, which increases how much you heal when you're sitting down. Next is Song of Shadow, which gives invisibility to your entire group for up to 35 seconds unless they begin to move. Then you have Harmonic Shield, which increases your armor rating and magical resistance, not just you, but all of your allies. Then you have Carol of Clarity, which restores your spell memory for up to a few seconds. This is good if you have a wizard and you already know your wizard's low on magic, and then boom, some PvP players come in. You can give them a little bit of spell memory back, allowing them to be a little bit more effective for the next couple of seconds. And then you have Ballad of Courage, which increases your physical power. It's honestly a very great spell, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, this is definitely your buff one. This is you want to help out other people, but in more protective ways, except for the last one, which is just straight up like, I'm that guy. You think I might not be that guy, but in reality, as it turns out, as you may not have expected, I am that guy. Now, let's take a look at the perks that you get as a bard. You get Charismatic Performance, which essentially just means that if your song is just alright, it is now going to sound amazing. This is important because how well you actually play the song will affect how much it does in terms of potency. And duration for some spells. Then you have Dancing Feet, which just makes it so that you're quicker when holding an instrument, allowing you to potentially run away even while playing a song. Then you have Jolly Time, which allows you to, whenever you drink ale, it increases your health and additional movement speed. This is kind of the idea of the drunkard who's just really good at singing and is just like the life of the party. Then we have Lore Mastery, which gives you a plus 25% regular interaction speed. That just allows you to open things like chests and doors quicker. Then you have Melodic Protection, which increases your PDR, which is your physical damage reduction, while playing music. Just making it so that you might be able to tank a hit while you're trying to boost yourself or your teammates. Then we have Rapier Mastery, which increases how much damage rapiers use while you wield them, and also makes your action speed a little bit faster. Then you have Reinforced Weapons, which allows you to, when attacking with instruments, deal 50% more damage. Then you have Storyteller, which gives everybody around you a +3 will and knowledge buff. This is really good for your magical friends. Will is good for potency of magic. Knowledge allows them to carry more magical spells on them. Next is Wanderer's Luck, which just increases the rarity of items you find. And War Song, which gives you a increased 2 weapon damage for 3 seconds to all allies every time that you do a successful song. Next up, we have the skills. That would be skills being Dissonance, it just makes it so that you can play a song that will restrict any spellcasters for the next 3 seconds. Then you can have Encore, which makes it so that the next time that you play a song, it will be at maximum speed and it will be perfect regardless of how your inputs really are at that time. Then you have Party Maker, which will remove all drinking effects from nearby party members. No one uses Party Maker because why would you want that? The drinking effects are very useful. So that is all of the different things that you can get for Bard in Dark and Darker. I would just want to say that I love the fact that Dark and Darker does acknowledge that bards are also melee fighters. You know, just because you're singing music does not mean that you're safe. The songs are strong, but they're not that strong, and there's a good chance that you're going to end up in melee range. And if that ends up being the case, well, you got a fudging rapier on you and a shield. And even if you don't have time to switch to that, if you have a lute out, you can literally bash someone's head in with your freaking lute, or you can throw a drum at them, or you can at least block with your flute, because yes, all of these instruments have a form of interaction that allows you to defend yourself. So I just love the fact that they do understand that bards are not just back of the line support objects. They're mostly back of the line support objects, but that's not their whole thing. So let's take a look at the Dungeons and Dragons version of it and see how it fares. Alright, so Dungeons and Dragons Bard. I'm trying not to sound negative, but it does not catch the vibe of Bard. Like, I know I'm supposed to save my judgment until the end of the section, but this just really, really infuriates me. So, if you remember from my cleric video, when I went over the domains of the cleric, each one had like a short little spell. Each one had like a short little spell list that was around 12 spells depending on which domain you had, and it gave you an idea of what kind of cleric you were doing, like what the god would approve of, you know, what abilities you gain. It was kind of cool. And then I just look at Bard and I'm just like, you have the College of Lore and the College of Valor. Basically, one is just a make your friends stronger or make yourself stronger so that you can attack. And then the other one is basically I'm a skill monkey. I'm really good at doing normal things. And it doesn't even tell you what spells you get, because you don't really get anything. All of the bardic spells are just normal, standard spells. They don't necessarily feel like something that an entertainer in some way has. They kind of just feel like a thing. They're just like, these are just like, you're just magic. You're just a fudging wizard. That's all it is. You're a wizard who gained their wizarding abilities from being really good at, I don't know, doing the Dougie. Like, that's kind of lame, because bards are super fudging interesting and they have so much variety. You could have chosen at least one interesting type of bard to put here. But I'm going to go through what they have anyways. We're not going to go over the spell list because there's over 100 spells and there's only like maybe 10 that really feel bard-like. But there's no guarantee you're even going to choose those, because you get to choose what your spells are. And if you want to decide that the only spells that you're getting are frost spells, then it's like, well, alright, well, how are you a bard then? Unless you flavor it that way. Like, if you're like using, I don't know, Ice Spike, I don't know the names of the spells. If you're using Ice Spike, you could be like, oh, I play my trombone and it's so, you know, so chill, so cool that it literally freezes the air and ice spikes fall. That's cool, but that's a flavor thing. That's not in the text necessarily. So we're gonna go over it real quick, but just know that I'm thoroughly disappointed with WotC when it comes to this. I heard that it's better in other source books, which I do have some source books, but not many. I have 2 besides the standard PHB, and I don't remember there being anything else about bards in those. So let's go over The first thing, the main thing, the most important thing is bardic inspiration. All of those different like bonuses that I was telling about that you can give your friends in Dark and Darker, you can kind of condense those into just bardic inspiration. It is a certain hit dice that anybody that you give the bardic inspiration to can use at any point from now until they die, but only once, and it allows them to add that bonus to their ability to do something. It doesn't do it for damage. That doesn't come until much later, until around, I believe, level 20, or maybe possibly even only level like 15. But the standard bardic inspiration just goes for literally everything. That's cool. That's really good, and that's one of the most bard things possible. You are inspiring people with your art. You are an artiste. So obviously that makes sense, and that's super cool, and I love bardic inspiration, and I think that anything that has bards should have a bardic inspiration equivalent. Next up, we have your Jack of all traits. This allows you to use your proficiency bonus, half of your proficiency bonus, rounded down on any check that you're not already proficient with. I get the idea of it. It's cool. It makes you very utilitarian. And I don't know if I love it or hate it. Like, I love it mechanically because that's really useful. So even things that you aren't pouring effort into still is pretty good because your character has trained to do a little bit of everything. You're a jack of all traits. That is super cool, but also lore-wise, it's like, well, is that really a bard thing? Are bards just really good at a bunch of different things? Not really. They're usually really good at like 2 or 3 things. They're really good at singing, maybe singing and dancing at the same time. You know, maybe they're a really good artist, but then, you know, maybe they're really good at other things as well. It's never like a little bit of everything. I mean, for some people it is, obviously, but the majority, that's not how you think of when you think of bard. Next would be Song of Rest. This basically just allows you to add an extra dice to someone's ability to heal during a short rest. Next after that is like your bard colleges, which we'll get to in a second. We have a few more to go over before we get there. Expertise, which just gives you more skills. You have Font of Inspiration, which just allows you to regain all of your bardic inspirations during either a short rest or a long rest, when normally it is only during a long rest. And then you have Counter Charm. Counter Charm allows you to just end any charm effect like that. You don't even gotta think about it, just boom, charm effect is now ended. Then you have the Magical Secrets. This is another thing that, like, the idea behind it is very cool, and if it was like subclass specific, I would be interested in it. But it's not, because it's just all bards. And it just allows you to take 2 spells from any other class's spell list. You can take the Cleric's Revivify. You can take the Chronomancy's Wizard's Time Magic. 2 spells from any other class. And that's cool. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But it's just like, that's not just like an any bard thing. It feels like you're just making him more of a skill monkey. You're removing the bard's identity by making him just a little bit of everybody. Next up, after that, we'll actually get into the colleges. There are 2 colleges listed inside of the PHB, and they're both kind of bad in my opinion. One of them is extremely uninspired, and the other one is only a little inspired. One is the College of Lore, which gives you Cutting Words, which essentially just allows you to remove someone's confidence. You can have I believe it is a D6, that allows you to remove that from whatever someone else is rolling. So if somebody's about to attack your friend, and your friend has an armor class of like 19, and they roll a 20, not a natural 20, but a 20 in general, you can then be like, nope, just kidding, I rolled my dice and it says 3. And so now you remove 3 from that 20, and it's like a 17, and now they fail to hit your friend. Pretty good. Not a bad ability. Pretty good ability. What does that have to do with the College of Lore? Like, you're a scholar who goes into the tomes of peasant tales, learning about, small victories across giant groups of people, and learning about little lives of little people. How does that work? Like, I guess you might become more creative in your insults and are better at disparaging people if that is something that you train in, which, yeah, I mean, that's fine. But then it's like, you got cutting words, but what else do you have? The only other thing you have is additional magical secrets, which is the same thing that it was before. You get more spells from literally any class that you feel like it. Wow. I mean, that at least makes sense in terms of College of Lore. You're literally reading the tomes of people's past, and so you're going to potentially gain their magical abilities through reading it, I guess. Then the other one you get is Perilous Skill, which just allows you to use a bardic inspiration to instead add it to an ability check, which I thought you could already do that, but I guess not. Maybe I was just not reading it correctly. But yeah, I mean, that's cool. I don't understand what it has to do with lore, but also it is just an ability. I can get why that might not be super lore specific. And you might be like, well, you've only read 3 things that the subclass gives you. Surely there's more. Surely that's not just it. But no, that's everything College of Lore gives you. And none of them feel very inspired. They're all just slightly interesting, I guess. And that's just not cool. That's not cool at all. Next, you have College of Valor. This is your battle bard. This is the bard that you bring into the fight with you. You gain some more proficiencies for joining the College of Valor. You get combat inspiration, which this actually allows you to give your bardic inspiration to actually deal some damage. So if you give someone your inspiration and they roll and then they're rolling damage, they can also use your bardic inspiration to make their damage even higher. That's cool. That's interesting. That makes sense for the class. Then you get an extra attack, which allows you to attack twice in a turn. Also cool. Well made. I like that. And then you get Battle Magic, which just gives you spells. That is it. You get weapon spells. And that's cool. I'm not, trying to disparage that one. That's a really cool idea. But I just feel like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we only giving you 3 things? And why are those 3 things, not awesome? They're just alright. They're alright. So, I mean, you got, the Dark and Darker one, where it's you get a little bit of everything depending on what musical instrument you want to specialize in. So, with the drums, it's you are the beating drum of war. You're coming in, you're boosting your friends, you're increasing your speed, you're dealing damage to groups of enemies. If you're using the flute, you're causing little spikes of pain into people. You're draining them of their energy. You're unlocking locks. If you decide to go with the lute, you're the peacemaker. You're stopping everybody in combat. You're taking wizards out of the equation. You're making fudging other monsters get angry and start attacking. If you have the lyre, you're bringing your partners back from the brink of death. These are cool abilities. Dungeons and Dragons just really, really missed the ball on this. I am so insanely disappointed. And, I know that at this point, I'm not trying to poop on the College of Valor. It's actually not a bad subclass. But it is a bad subclass when I look at it and I'm like, well, the Bard itself is just a bad class. It's just a bad class, hands down. So which one do I think did it better? I think it's pretty obvious who did it better. Dark and Darker, you got this one. Hope you guys liked the video. I know I went a little ranty on the end there, but I hope you guys still stuck with me through it. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.